we are back again with Moms Coaching Moms and our weekly video that we're doing. We just finished and came off of the month of October because we're actually November already. Oh my goodness, crazy. And October, we talked all about mental health awareness and mental health struggles that we have as moms with our kids, with like challenges, mental challenges, physical challenges, all that kind of stuff that we have. And we even had a very special guest to us on our last week at our NJAM conversation. We had Carol Todd with us. And if you've listened to any of our videos through October, you would know that we were talking a lot about Amanda Todd and the Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation and all of that, because it's all surrounding mental health. And so it was fantastic having a conversation with her last week. And so we are now into November, and we decided that for the next 4 weeks, we're going to actually break down and talk about the lies that we believe as moms. So we want to untangle these lies that we believe as moms, because we all have stories that we've been told, that we've told ourselves, all of these things about being a mom. And like, you just kind of live and you just start raising kids and you just start going. And like, I don't know, it's like I have 5 kids. My oldest is 21, almost 22. And I've just started like kind of realizing some of those stories and going, wait, wait a minute, where did that come from? Like these stories that either get put onto us that we lived maybe as kids, that, we take on from those around us, that whatever, we read a book, we heard a speaker, we had a mentor in our life, we had like whatever, and just these things that are put on us or that we take on. And until we can just, stop and ask ourselves, we do this a lot, stop and wait. Well, what am I thinking? And going like, where did this come from? Because there's a lot. So that's really what we want to talk about today, is just opening up the conversation about the stories and start untangling the lies. But we have to know what the stories are before we can actually look and go, okay, is this serving me? Is this helpful to me? Is this something that I want to, keep going in my family, with my kids? Or is this like a lie? Is this something that's not serving me? Is this something that's maybe hurt my family, hurt me, and that? So yeah, we just want to start talking about this, opening up the conversation, because that's what we need. We need conversation to start opening this up. So what are some lies for you, Christine, that you've believed? Or
sort of this idea that my kid will be a certain way by a certain age, or won't be a certain way at a certain age. And I know one of the things, because having a special needs child was, well, is she not talking yet? So is that, like, that's not normal, is it? And this idea, then this internal pressure that somehow as a mom I'm doing something wrong, that my kid isn't talking yet. Or if my kid is acting out, it's like, oh, well, have they eaten recently? Like, do they sleep okay? Like, they seem to be acting tired. And I don't know, maybe they're just trying to get some attention because they wanted something. Like, there's so many different things on that, but it comes back to that somehow I am inadequate as a mother. Somehow I am not doing something right, or I'm not doing something good enough. And I know for some people it's like, oh, well, can your kids not put themselves to bed? Like, what time is bedtime? Because, it seems a bit late, isn't it? There's so many of these things in this idea that if a child isn't acting a certain way or doing a certain thing, you're somehow falling short. And then, you know, on the other side of that too, you have the whole like, oh, you think that's bad, just wait until this.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, what does that have to do with what I'm experiencing right now? And so there's all this pressure that somehow we're not living up to this expectation, or following sort of this standard for development of what a child should or shouldn't be. And
Well, and who decides that?
I don't know,
Like,
professionals.
I mean, like, I get that there's certain like milestones, I guess that's one term that they'll use, like milestones to hit. Like, okay, a baby will generally roll over by this date. They'll generally start sitting. They should be able to sit up at this date, crawl. Like, you know, I get that. Like, speak. You know, like it's all broken down into, okay, it's sort of these letters they can say by this age, these letters they can say by this age, this, you know, words, that kind of thing. I get those, but the whole thing of, you know, well, aren't they sleeping through the night yet? And aren't they? And I understand too that some of that stuff can have an impact on, it can mean something more. I get that. However, like, I think it's gone too far.
Absolutely. And just the pressure, around that. I totally remember our oldest was born, well, 6 pounds. So not like preemie small, but smaller
Mm-hmm.
than maybe what they say is the average weight for a newborn. And of course, if you saw my frame at 4'11", like you wouldn't really want a whole lot bigger, just saying from personal experience, but whatever.
Exactly.
And she was very slow to gain weight. And we had to take her every week to get weighed in. And every week, you know, if she hadn't gained 0.1 ounce or whatever, like, what are you feeding her? How often are you feeding her? Like, do you get up in the night and feed her? Like, is she, like, as if there was something wrong with how I was feeding her, like it was a defect. And you know, you now see her at 23 and she's totally fine. But certainly that first year, for the first year of her life, every week we had to take her in to get weighed. And they were screaming like, oh, she's only in the 5th percentile. Like, we really need to be getting more food into her. And you know, she wasn't even 20 pounds by the time that she was 2. And yet she was fine. And yeah, it's just those kind of things that we were measuring her up against some invisible measuring stick, that there was nothing wrong with her. And yet there was this pressure that I was somehow failing as a mother. And that pressure to be something else that I had no idea what it is that I needed to be. And looking around then and comparing to other parents and seeing, oh, well, their kid feeds for like 40 minutes and mine only does for 20. Like, oh, there must be something wrong. As opposed to their kid fed for 40 minutes every 3 hours and mine did, you know, 20 minutes every hour. So it wasn't really a whole lot of difference. It was just how she did it. So yeah, I think that there's all sorts of things like that.
And it's interesting that you say it, because my kids were opposite. My kids were all opposite. They were all like 95th percentile, 100th percentile, 110th percentile. But it's interesting because I got a lot of those same questions. What are you feeding them? Are they getting enough this? Do they have too much of this? Do they have like all these questions that, like, and I get it. The doctors, they need to, you know, like, they need to make sure, I get it's their job to make sure that there's, you know, that they're healthy and they're getting enough and they're weighing enough, and, you know, like on and on. I get that side of it. However, it's like, sometimes it was the doctors and the way that they talked too. And after, like, you know, the 5th kid, I'm like, okay, like, I can show you the charts for all my kids. They're all the same. Like, they're all off the charts. They're all in the high percentages, like for height, weight, like everything. And but I guess the where I had more the struggle was with other parents that would like question those things, you know. And the feeding one, oh my goodness, did I have a hard time with that one because my kids, I never had enough milk, and I wanted to breastfeed, and so I tried, and my kids took, it didn't matter what I did, it was like an hour each feeding it. And I had people telling me that I was doing something wrong. I had some people that were just like, well, you're just wasting time. Literally told me that I was like wasting time. I was taking too much time and I had other things I could be doing and whatever. And I'm like, I'm feeding my child. Like, you know, like just kind of bizarre. But all those things, and then we take them on sometimes, you know, that's where, like, you know, I mean, we can't control what other people say, but, you know, if we allow other people to talk into this, it's like we end up like they have a whole life schedule, you know, like just wait until they, and that's what our topic this week on the NJAM conversation is, just wait until your kid dot dot dot, you know. And it's like, wait until they can crawl, wait till they stand, wait till they walk, wait till they run, wait till they go to school, wait till they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, wait till they're in a relationship. Oh, what about university and a job? And you know, and it's like this baby sometimes isn't even born yet and they're like in university and have a full family and like whatever. And it's like, whoa, okay, can we just maybe slow down and just enjoy the time that we have? And you know, and then there's the ones that, you know, one that always gets me is when people talk about the terrible twos, saying that. That's one that's, it's always bothered me a lot. um and I guess the way that I always saw it and I framed it and I looked at it was, I guess terrible is one way that you could look at it. But to me, it was my child was learning their independence. And I don't think that's terrible. So, you know, like, yes, when I'm trying to get out the door and my child is deciding that they're going to tie their shoes for the first time or they're going to do up their coat, and it's taking a little while longer, which when you look at in the grand scheme of things, it's maybe like what, 30 seconds or a minute, maybe longer actually. But to me, I was like, well, I don't want to forever be tying their shoes. So I'm just going to be excited that they're tying their shoes right now. And there were times I was in a rush and I was like, hey, you know what? I love that you're trying this and I'm in a real hurry. So maybe we can just like do this when we get back and we can just go for right now. So, yeah, but you know, things like that, like the terrible too, is like, why are they terrible? Like, you know, or the teenage years. That's one that's always got me. I love teenagers. They've always been one of my favorite groups of people. And you know, how a lot of people talk about teenagers and stuff too. It's just like, oh, okay. Just wait, you know, just wait until your kid's a teenager and then, oh, like if you start that sentence with someone and let them go with it, wow. So, yeah.
So instead of saying just wait until, how would you rephrase it now, knowing what you know?
Um, I don't know. Like, I just wouldn't, I don't think I would say anything like that at all. Because like, I don't know what actually should come after that for me. Like, I mean, I guess there's a possibility I said it. I just don't know that I've ever said that to someone because, and I mean, I probably have, like, I mean, we kind of all do, but I don't really remember doing that because, like, I guess to me, when someone says that to me, usually there's going to be a negative coming after it. Just wait. You wait till your kid is like, you know.
So what do you think is the reason that people say that? What is it that they are are really trying to communicate?
My light is really not great right now. Oh, this time of day that the sun is changing in my world, and I should have had lights on, obviously, here. So, sorry, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, like what do you think is the reason that people are saying that? Like what is really um the desire behind saying that?
Well, I don't know. I guess my first thought is like, I mean, I think we always generally will assume other people are like us, you know, how we react. Like we kind of just assume like what things that I would do and say, I kind of assume like if I'm an honest person, I generally will just believe someone else is honest and stuff. And so for me with this is I love connecting with people, and to connect with people, you connect with stories. And so for me, I think it's just someone trying to connect in a way, and maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they have their own story. Maybe they got blindsided by something and they didn't know. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I do think it comes down to trying to connect and communicate and I also think in a way it's sort of like when I hear it now being on the other side and understanding emotional intelligence and how that plays into things and how it often doesn't play into things is that it's almost like a way of um, letting someone know that it's possible to get through it and there's going to be things ahead as well. And I think sometimes the idea with that, although it doesn't come across that way, is to sort of let someone know the sky isn't falling here. Here is going to be a different kind of challenge. The problem with that is that instead of almost trying to give that hope or trying to connect, it actually um, drives disconnection. And it has people feel, I don't know, my new word, not new word, but the word I've been using today is discombobulated. That you're sort of just like, okay, wait, what? Like I was talking about this and now you're saying, like, oh, just wait until that. Like I'm stuck here. I can't even think about over there. But it's almost like um, people are afraid to, I think, people are afraid to be vulnerable. And people are afraid to take that step in courage, to say, yeah, I know that that's really hard. And I've been finding that now that my kids are at this age, that's also been hard for me. And to realize that just because something might be really hard for me, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be hard for you. And I know I had postpartum depression and psychosis. Having babies was really, really, really hard for me. There are other moms that love that stage and will do anything to go back there where they found having their kids, I don't know, go off to school really hard. And maybe some of the rest of us didn't find it the same challenge or but it doesn't mean that all these things aren't a challenge for some. But it's really hard to say, I struggled with this when you don't know if someone else has struggled with it. And the moment that you sort of have someone else be like, yeah, that was really hard for me, it's like, oh my gosh, me too. And it's really hard to speak up about postpartum depression and psychosis, for example, when I'm in a group of moms that are talking about how they loved nothing more than being a new mom and breastfeeding was no problem and their kids were sleeping through the night at 2 months and blah, 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 whatever it is. And instead of feeling very genuinely happy for them, I often have felt this tinge of jealousy and resentment that couldn't
Mm.
be my story. And yet, when I had someone else tell me that they struggle too, all of a sudden, then I felt like I was able to connect better. Not that, and I think then what helps is if we can truly stop, if we can take that time to observe and process and to realize you can be really happy for someone in whatever stage they are at with their kid, and it could have been a really brutal stage for you,
Mm-hmm.
or vice versa. And it doesn't have to be a competition. It doesn't have to be, everyone has to be a certain way. And that takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of vulnerability, and it takes a lot of guts to be able to say, something like, I really struggled with that. And so then we tend to say things like, well, just you wait. Or, oh man, like, I didn't have that at all. So, wow, are you ever lucky? As if the person's thinking, yeah, it doesn't sound like I'm lucky. So, yeah, I think that it's definitely a complicated one to sort through. And so I am looking forward to hearing what other moms have to say
Mm-hmm.
and the stories, so that we can take a moment to hold space for whatever story they're in, and maybe also to get that encouragement and inspiration, and that idea that I can relate to that feeling even if it's not in the same circumstance.
Well, and I think even going back before all of that, I think there's another place that often, like, where we're just uncomfortable with our emotions. Like, before even being able to relate, like that we just want to say something. And what's the reason for that is because I think often we're just uncomfortable. We don't even know what we're feeling in the first
Yeah.
place. We are not even comfortable with it. We don't know what to say. It has to be okay. We have to make things like, and all of that we're just either don't even know, or we're not comfortable with it. And so then to be able to sit with, like, if we can't even sit in our own emotions that are sort of uncomfortable, how are we ever going to sit with someone else in their emotions of like, oh yeah, that really sucks. Like, wow. And, we have, a term that we use with our moms coaching moms, and it's fix it factor. And so I'm just bringing it up here, and I'm going to just share it real quick here, because I think it fits perfectly for often what we're actually trying to do. And fix it factor is an automatic response to give unasked for advice, to fix, correct, teach, repair, or convince. In this case, when we're talking about this kind of stuff, we're trying to, maybe teach, or, we're trying to just relate to people. But when it's this automatic response of unasked for advice, like, it will come from a place of wanting to help, that we maybe sometimes we want to give people hope. Maybe sometimes we're just like, oh yeah, like, don't worry, like it'll all be good, like it's okay. But what often happens is it often causes the fight or flight response in the other person. And it's not just with our kids, it's with other human beings, other moms, other parents that we're talking to, that often can happen. And so then that's when, we can say like, well, I meant it good. Like, I meant it in a good way. Like, I was just trying to, that, instead of just like accepting where someone's at and just like, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. Wow, that sounded like it was really hard for you. And then if we want to share something that we talk about a lot with our moms coaching moms too, is just asking permission. Hey, can I share with you my experience? Or, because it gives a really different response to someone to do that. So this week, if someone's listening the first week in November, for our NJAM conversation, we're going to be talking more about this. We're going to go diving more into the stories. We're going to actually be breaking down the stories that we have, and we're going to do that with each of the moms that come, and breaking that down and learning what we can do with them then. If they're serving us, do we want those stories to continue? If not, what do we do about them? So yeah, as always, I mean, all our links are going to be posted with the video, and all moms are welcome to join us Wednesday night. And did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, awesome. So we will see you either Wednesday night or next week on our next video.
Awesome.